Hi guys, you see that puff of smoke behind me? If we watch, let's see if we can discover what's coming towards us. That is a combine. Today we're combining the beans, and Mr. Brian Bell is running that combine. Do you suppose if we talked to him really nice, he'd let us take a ride in that combine? Well, I'll tell you what, let's give it a try. Come on.
Missy, you want to come ride?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Brian. All right. How's your week going, Mr. Brian?
It's been fantastic.
How so?
It's fall here in Kansas, which means it's harvest time.
Oh, and what does harvest time mean to the farmer?
Harvest time means it's time to get all of our hard work that we put in all year out and see what we made.
This is the time you've been waiting for months, isn't it?
This is the time. So we're cutting some beans today. We've been cutting beans all week, and it's been a beautiful week. I mean, 73 degrees, the sun's been shining, and you couldn't ask for a better week to cut soybeans.
Isn't that the truth?
Yep.
But I'm kind of thinking probably winter's on the way. What do you think?
I think so too. So we better try to get these beans done before winter gets here, I think.
Hey Brian.
Yes.
Have you ever had a year that was totally nasty for cutting beans? I mean, like it's wet and freezing cold.
Almost the last 2 years were pretty bad, as close to nasty as you could get. It was really muddy, and this header here is not anything like the corn head, so it runs right on the ground, and you gotta you make tracks with the grain cart, tracks with the combine, and not only is it harder to combine, but it's harder to get that crop back the next year because we've had so many ruts.
And the ruts.
Water and compaction and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot that goes into it, that's for sure.
Now I noticed on your combine it had tracks on it.
Yes, our combines have tracks on them, and then the tractor has tracks as well as the grain cart.
Okay, and what does that mean for you guys in wet weather?
So tracks is all about, one is less compaction, more flotation. So wet ground, we get a little less square foot, per down pressure per impact. It spreads out the weight of a combine so much so it doesn't make that footprint quite so tight, make that ground so tight.
Yeah.
And then flotation being, we're not cutting such deep ruts, and we can keep going even if it's a little wet.
Have you ever gotten stuck out in the fields? It was so wet?
I have got stuck.
How'd you get this big, huge thing out?
Well, with an even bigger tractor. So unfortunately, mishaps do happen, and we can't control everything.
Exactly.
But the time that I got stuck, it was on an older machine, and it did have tires on it.
Oh my!
Cutting wheat then, so
oh boy,
that wasn't a lot of fun.
Not fun.
Yep.
Hey,
you remember one? I guess a few weeks ago. You guys picked some corn with Mr. Jim. That's correct.
Yep, we sure did. That was fun.
It was.
And Brian, do you know what we saw out there?
What did you see out there?
Between the rows of the corn.
What was that?
There was a huge buck. He was just laying between the rows, and we spooked him, and he jumped up, and he ran. And of course, I didn't have my camera on, so I didn't catch it. That was not the highlight of my day. Hey, what's going on next to us, Brian?
Well, the same thing as if everybody watched a few weeks ago when you're riding with Mr. Jim. We're just putting our beans out of the combine onto the grain cart right now. And the grain cart is just such a handy tool for us because the combines don't ever have to stop once we're going. If you look ahead, you can see we're still cutting beans. 5.5 miles an hour, and we're unloading our grain tank, and when we get to the other end, we can just turn around and keep on going. So it just keeps us moving all the time.
Saves a lot of time, doesn't it?
So
that is so cool. And there's Mr. Jim up ahead.
Yep.
I noticed he's flying a flag on his combine today.
He is flying.
I like that. I do say it's the most beautiful flag in the world. Very much. Oh, I'm in your way, aren't I?
You're okay. Just try to stay out of the mud holes.
There's still mud holes out here?
There's still mud holes. I made some tracks with the sprayer here over the summer.
And now
we did get just a little bit of rain, enough to make a mud hole every once in a while.
You bet. you rather combine beans or corn, Brian?
I like cutting beans a little
Why?
bit better. I just like running this header, and it's a little wider. We run 2 combines that you see in bean harvest. It speeds things up, and the biggest thing for me is I'm not at the mercy of the planter. So you remember Jim telling you, picking corn, you're following right down the row.
Right.
And that header doesn't want to. We call it picking corn because the header doesn't want to cut the crop off. Here we're cutting beans. We're not picking beans because this header, that sickle that's moving real fast down there at the front, it's cutting the whole plant off and feeding the whole plant through the combine. So what that means, like I'm cutting on an angle now, and when I do my end rows and stuff, when I say I'm not at the mercy of the planter, meaning I don't have to follow those rows just right on. I can cut around the field a couple times, and we can set an angle together, and we can just work back and forth and not have to worry about stopping and backing up, getting turned around. It just flows a little faster.
I've noticed too that sometimes you don't even go straight down the roads. You just crisscross across the whole field.
Yep. We cut them at an angle, and all that does is just help them feed a little bit better. It just
very good.
Keeps the beans moving across the cutter bar and just helps them feed a little bit better. We cut with the row sometimes. If you have a smaller field that's kind of odd shaped, it runs maybe has point rows on one side and runs straight with the road or something, then we can cut them straight. It's not a big deal. It's just this kind of stuff with all this wheat straw here. There's a lot of material, and it just cuts feeds really nice when it's coming.
So was there wheat planted here before you planted the beans?
There was wheat here. Sometimes you'll hear people use the term double crop.
Yeah.
Basically, is what that means is they normally planted wheat and beans in the same year, so they've double cropped. They've got 2 crops in the same year. Now, you can't do that on all farm ground. It just doesn't work. People think, well, why? If you can get 2 crops in 1 year, why would you not do that on all your farm ground? Well, it just doesn't. Not all soils are really good for double cropping. Some of them, those really black soils and stuff like that, and you put the wheat in, then you combine the wheat. You're in such a time crunch to try to get the beans in by late summer. If it's wet at all, and you're either trying to, if you're running it out and you feel like you need to work your wheat straw or something, it's just really hard to get those beans back, and you can't work that type of ground again, and then a lot of times you just get it dried out, and then you won't catch rain late in the summer. So everybody's environment's different, but for our area, in our soil types, you're just not set up to double crop every acre. Now, the farm we're on right now is a really nice farm. It's one of my favorites to farm, and it's a lot lighter soil, and it raises phenomenal wheat, and normally raises really, really good double crop beans. And so it makes total sense to go ahead and do that. Like this year where we didn't have any, we didn't have to track, we didn't have any mud to combine the wheat.
There's a reason for that, right?
Yep,
no mud because we didn't have much rain,
that's
did we?
Right, didn't have much rain. But we can pull right in here with the sprayer and keep the weeds down, and then just roll right with the planter and plant these beans right into this wheat straw. And these beans love the cover, and I think these beans really would have been probably a little worse as late as they were planted with as minimal rainfall as you got. But having the cover of the wheat straw here, helps hold some of that moisture and gives it a nice blanket, and I think it really helped these beans do a lot better.
Good.
I've got a question for you, Mrs. Z.
What is it?
Why is a combine called a combine?
Why is a combine called a combine?
Yes. Can you think of it?
Combine. Does that have something to do with the word combine?
It does have something to do with the word combine. You're on the right track.
I don't know, Brian. Tell me.
A combine is called a combine because you're right. It combines multiple processes of getting your grain harvested. So you've got the header on the front. So back in the day, they used to go cut their crop or pick their corn or something, and then they would haul it in a wagon behind a horse back to a thresher, and then they would thresh it, and then they would separate it in the grain. And then at the end of that, all of that process, the weeks and weeks worth of work, they would have clean grain. And so is what the combine did was it cuts it, so we're cutting the beans off, and then it feeds it. So these drapers run it right into the front of the combine, feeds it in, sends it into the rotor, which is our threshing component, Okay, so it just gets in there, grinds it up really, really fast, and shakes the beans out. And oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting turned around again. And,
I don't care.
And then after, when those beans fall down, they fall into what we call the shoe or the sieves, and some people say chaffer, depending on what style combine you are. And it'll shake it, and that's our separating process. And it's got a fan underneath all of that, and that fan's blowing air, so it's shaking down, and the heavy stuff's going down, and the lighter stuff stays on top, and then the air starts blowing it out the back, and then it chops up that residue, even what's left over, and blows it out the back, and we put it, just spreads the residue left and runs the grain up the clean elevator right into the tank. So it just takes all those processes and put it into one machine.
That is cool.
Yep,
I cannot imagine inventing a combine.
I couldn't either, but I'm sure glad they did.
Oh my goodness, yes.
This would be a lot less fun if we had to do this by hand.
Oh yeah. You wouldn't be in air-conditioned comfort, would you?
No, and you're sitting on my refrigerator.
Are you kidding
No,
me?
I'm not kidding.
What you got in here that's good to eat?
So you guys, when you rode with Mr. Jim a few weeks back, you guys were picking corn, and I think you might remember him saying, that all that corn head wanted was the ear itself.
Right.
So that was the difference I said earlier between picking and cutting. See, as we turn around here and all the materials off the crop, those real shiny teeth down there, we call those sections.
Yeah.
They're running inside of those darts, and they're just moving back and forth. So
I see them moving back and forth.
and then, so where this header runs right on the ground, just like you can see, it's cutting everything off right on the ground, and it's feeding the whole plant into the combine. So that's the real difference of what we're doing today. The concept's the same. The plant's dry. It's time to harvest. The combine is threshing it the same. The biggest difference is the header.
Yeah.
So it's wider. It cuts right on the ground and takes in the hole. So that's the difference between the picking and the cutting. So that's why when we say we're cutting wheat, this is the same header we use for wheat harvest also.
Very good. Wow. Brian, what are the tall, dark brown things sticking up above the beans?
Unfortunately, there's just a few cuckleburs out here.
Cuckleburs. What's a cucklebur?
Cucklebur is a noxious weed. It's just a very...
It's not your favorite thing?
No, it's not our favorite thing. We don't like them in the beans, and when you cut them off, they're hard to thresh out separately.
Then why did you plant them in the beans if you don't like them in the beans?
We sure didn't plant them in the beans. So unfortunately, when a cucklebur gets mature like that, those seeds, if you cut the cucklebur part open, it's got the seeds inside.
Yes.
Those seeds will stay able to germinate for up to like 25 years.
They stay in the dirt, and they can sprout 30 years later, 25 or 30 years later.
30 years later, yep.
No wonder it's a losing battle with the cuckleburs.
It's pretty tough. We try our best to. The best way for weed control and to fight cuckleburs is to get them before they ever come up.
Yeah. Have you guys been going night and day, or do you stop for nighttime?
It's normally at nighttime, which lately, like I said, the weather's been so beautiful and the wind's been blowing, we've been able to cut pretty late at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock some nights. But
if the wind's not blowing, what happens at night?
They get tough.
The beans get tough?
Yeah, the plant itself gets tough.
And what's bad about that?
You can't thresh them. They feed into the combine tough, they kind of start sticking to the drapers, and they just feed a little tougher. And it just, you got to slow down. It just doesn't do as good a job cleaning your sand.
So is that why you don't start combining beans then until probably late morning or after lunch?
Most of the day, and that's exactly why. Once that humidity and everything sets in late in the evening, we have to wait until the next morning. It takes the sunshine to get it up there. So if you look here, all that stuff coming out of the back of the combine.
Yep.
So you don't want any beans in that. That's just all the residue that's left. That's the chopped up plants and the wheat straw and everything we're cutting off the ground. And all the beans are just going right in the top, the clean beans. So
sweet.
That's just what's left. And all that residue right there, that's good stuff. We like spreading it out and putting it back on the dirt.
Why?
It's got some fertilizer held up in it and stuff like that. It's just good organic material. It's really good for your soil.
Is that kind of like a compost?
Yes, just like
that you put on your garden.
Yeah, pretty similar to that. It just we like that organic material. If you take that stuff off every year, your soil quality starts to deteriorate. You start to notice the difference there. So,
Wow.
Yep, there's Mr. Jim there.
There he is. Hey, Mr. Jim. So you sell these beans by the bushel, right?
By the bushel, yep.
And where do you sell them? Who in the world's going to buy a bean?
We sell them to various places, or I say Jim sells them to various places.
Yeah.
A lot of where these beans go to is they make like biodiesel.
Yeah.
With them, and so then they use the byproduct, what is left over from the bean for feed and that kind of stuff. And, minerals, but a lot of these soybeans, across the country will get sold for, they go in your food. A lot of things you eat, in schools and stuff like that. Soy-based.
Soybean burgers.
Soybean burgers, and all sorts of stuff.
I've heard my kids talk about soybean burgers.
Yep.
Oh my. Oh, we appreciate you farmers.
Yep.
Raising our food.
We're trying for sure.
It's not an easy job, is it, Brian?
No. Some years it's easier than others. Some years it's a little more fun than others. But you try to just, you just try your hardest to have fun no matter what. That's the main thing. So.
Yep.
Have fun and be careful.
Be careful. Why do you say that? Be careful.
Oh, be careful. Just this time of year, farmers are forced out onto the roads with this big machinery, and these things they got flashing lights all over them and stuff like that. But we just really things happen. Sometimes people don't pay attention or get in a hurry, and you put us kind of guys in tough situations and dangerous situations. And we just we got to share the road with everybody too.
Yeah.
We just want to see everybody make it home every day. So
exactly.
Just gotta be careful and pay attention. And this time of year in Kansas, it's harvest time, so just try to be a little patient, I guess.
Be a little patient and slow it down.
That's right.
You guys are big out here, and you can't go 55 miles an hour like a car can you?
Can't do that.
You're doing your best to be out of the way, but it doesn't always happen.
Yep. Look at that, the last pass.
Oh my goodness. Isn't that a nice sight?
One more field down.
Nice sight. How'd you learn all this stuff, Brian? Did you grow up on a farm?
I didn't. My grandpa farmed, but I was too young to really be too much of a part of that.
Yeah.
What's going on? So most of everything that I know has come from Mr. Jim. So
he's a good teacher then.
Yeah, he is. He's taught me about everything I know for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Brian, as we finish up this field, do you have any parting words for the boys and girls out there?
Sure. Number one is thanks for riding along with us. Thanks for bringing them. And you guys just like and subscribe to Mrs. Z's videos and comment to her. And if you guys want to go riding in the tractor or combine or something, we'll stop and pick her up. So just let us know. We're glad to have you.
Hey, that sounds like a deal, doesn't it, guys?
It does.
All righty. Bye, guys.
See ya.